The one thing that has really surprised me about sharing our journey of growing a farm over the last 4 years is the fact that the #1 question I get is, where did you buy that? Over on Instagram, at least once a day, I have someone asking either, where did I buy my paper wraps? The answer is Uline, they're 18 by 18 square craft paper. Or, where did you get those awesome buckets? And the answer to that is we get them at Princess Auto. They're feed buckets. But down below in the description of this video, I've actually found a link for where you can find these on Amazon. And I'm gonna share lots of links for my resources down there too throughout this entire video. Back in 2019, when we started our farm, we didn't have anything. We didn't have experience, we didn't have equipment. All we had was an empty field. And one of the hardest challenges for us personally was to know where to begin. You know, we knew what we needed to do, we knew what we wanted to plant, we knew what type of farm we wanted to be, but those little things were, you know, the questions that we had too. We needed to ask people, where did you buy that? And it took us a long time before we could gather together, you know, a list of where to get everything. And so I understand the desire for that knowledge. Knowing that you need buckets to put your flowers in is important, but going and finding those buckets sometimes feels like it's a lot harder than it should be. So I've raked my brain trying to think of everything that I use, trying to think of all the resources that I have and where I get them from to share with you guys. But as I was making this list, it was a lot more complicated than I thought it would be. So if there's anything that you are wondering about, make sure to comment below and I will add in the comments, we will add to the list all those little things. Don't worry if it seems too simple to ask, go ahead and ask me. Being Canadian, some of my resources aren't going to be usable, but as I said, for in the description resources, I'm going to share, you know, what I have, but I'm also going to, whenever possible, try to share something that's a little bit more international. This is going to be a list of practical farming shopping guide. But if you're looking for a great gift idea, I want you to consider our sponsor, Established Titles. This video is sponsored by Established Titles, and ever since I got my title, making me officially Lady Serena, everything has changed. Established Titles is a fun and novel way to preserve the natural woodlands of Scotland while helping global reforestation efforts. When you purchase a title pack, you get at least 1 square foot of dedicated land with a unique plot number and a fund certificate. Then, because of the historic Scottish tradition of calling landowners lairds, you can officially call yourself a lord or lady, which is a fun little detail to add to your next plane ticket or dating profile. Most of all, I love that every order leads to a tree being planted by One Tree Planted or Trees for the Future. The first 200 people to purchase with my link will be near my plot, where we can build a grassless kingdom. It makes an amazing last-minute gift. Established Titles is actually running a massive Black Friday sale right now. Plus, if you use the code NOGRASS, you get an additional 10% off. Go to establishedtitles.com/nograss to get your gifts now and help support the channel. There's one thing I know for sure, and that is I'm getting one of these for Ian for Christmas. The first thing I'm gonna start with is the gear that I use every single day. And most of that is, you know, clothing and apparel type stuff. So the first thing that will always be in my pockets every single day is a pair of curved Corona snips. So I like how the blade curves up a little bit. I like that the snips, they close up with the string, you know, easy to get in there, cut the plants. I really like this specific brand in specific shape, and I have a million of them. I find them quite affordable, so I like to have 10 or 15 pairs somewhere on the farm. So I always have lots to use and I don't have to always be cleaning them. I can instead, you know, when they start to get gummed up or they get dirty, I can make a pile and then once a week, every 2 weeks, I can do a big clean. I also really like the straight, Grona straight blade snips too. So curved is my first choice, but I do not complain ever to have this straight. In my one pocket, I got the snips, and in my other pocket, I have my gloves. And I'm a snob. When it comes to seeds, I'm very specific about exactly what I want, and I want that, no substitutes, only that, and that might extend to my other choices too, because I have a favorite pair of gloves, and I'm convinced that these gloves are a million times better than any other gloves. The brand is Watson, and they are Stealth Hero. I wear a medium. I've bought cheaper gloves before, and I find that they last, you know, a third of the time of what a pair of the Stealth Hero Watson gloves last. They're a little bit more pricey, but they're really comfortable, really good for working in. They're like a dipped glove. So they can get wet, but they do have some breathability and they're grippy. They're great for using. Takes a little bit to get used to using gloves, but I highly recommend all of you guys get into the habit. It protects your hands. You know, your hands have to be healthy to do this kind of work. On my head will always be a hat, and my goal is to get the widest brim hat possible, and I put it on the second I leave my door, and I leave it on into the night. Hats like this one I got from Mountain Equipment Co-op. They don't make this hat anymore. I do have a version of this type of hat that I got off Amazon, which I really like because it actually is foldable. This, if I fold it, the brim starts to get all wonky. But yeah, having this big wide brim is amazing. It keeps the sun off of my face. It has a string, so if the wind comes up, it stays on my head. If it's raining out, this will actually, you know, keep me quite dry every day. Morning, noon, night, winter or summer. If I can, I try to have a hat like this on my head. I love having overalls. You know, I want to be completely covered. Keeps my knees very comfortable when I'm crawling around in the dirt. Keeps my legs protected. And I get all of my overalls from Duluth. These specific ones are Heirloom Gardening Bib, and these are really lightweight. They're, you know, they're great for the summer. They're strong. They have like a thread woven into them that strengthens the material so that they can handle me crawling around in the dirt. But they're surprisingly comfortable even on our, you know, 100-degree days. So these I'm always happy to have on, you know, even layered over things in the heat. Underneath my overalls, I still have pants. I get most of my work pants from Duluth. So these pants here, still from Duluth. One of the most important pieces of my entire outfit are these lovely oversized men's dress shirts that I always wear. These I pick up at thrift stores. When I buy them, what I'm looking for is a woven cotton shirt. It has to be cotton so that it's comfortable in the heat. Anything that is like a polyester or something different, it's going to overheat you. And these, you know, they're super easy to find. One thing that you need to be aware of though is they don't last forever. This one here, this one's due for the garbage. This shirt is, you know, I've worn through it. I've worn it thin. This one, it's obvious that it's time to replace because there's holes in it. But before they get holes, these can still stop doing their function because this shirt's supposed to be giving me sun protection. And if this shirt gets thin enough that, you know, the sun can come through it, if this shirt is so worn out and so thin that it's shredding to pieces, this shirt isn't protecting me from the sun. Last year, our employee, she had a shirt that she really liked to wear, but she'd been wearing it for 10 years. And there was one day when extra sun, extra bright, extra bad UV, she got a sunburn all over her back from the fact that her shirt you know, it was just time to replace it. You know, don't learn this lesson the hard way. Learn it from someone else's mistakes. These are great, but you need to make sure that these are still working. And then finally, on my feet, I like to wear Bogs Savvy ankle boots. These, I really like them because we are so dusty here. So I'm wearing a waterproof shoe, not because of water, even though they're amazing because they are waterproof. I'm wearing them because it keeps the dust and the dirt out of my shoes. I find that with wearing cotton socks with them, I don't get overly sweaty, but I love these. They're easy to slip on, they're easy to take off, they're super comfortable to wear day after day after day. You know, these are on my feet 200 days of the year, and you know, I really like them. And then finally, you know, maybe some merch as a good way to finish off the look. And then you guys can all look as fashionable as me. I wish it could always be summer, but unfortunately, sometimes it's cold out. And so this is my gear for cold weather. The pruners that I tend to use more when it's cold out are my Felco hand pruners. And these are a lot more heavy duty. They're able to cut through thicker things. The Snips are kind of just for cutting flower stems and very small work. So this time of year, when I'm cutting branches, when I'm cutting thick stems like sunflowers and cutting down dahlias to overwinter, that's when I want to have my Felcos. And the pair that I have, I've had for probably a decade. They were a gift, and they will most likely last me my entire life or until I lose them, whichever comes first. For gloves, when it's cold out, I still like the same style of glove, but I found this insulated pair. They're all like fuzzy and warm on the inside. And these have been amazing. Even though they're not necessarily waterproof, I find that when I have these on, if I'm working in the snow, my hands aren't getting wet, my hands are staying comfortable. Having cold hands makes me very sad. Not always so cold that you need something like this, but often when it's cold out, it's wet. And so even if you're not going to use an insulated glove like this, just the idea of having multiple pairs of gloves is really helpful for me. Being able to wear my gloves for an hour, have them get wet, switch them out for dry gloves, you know, keep rotating throughout the day. It makes it a lot more comfortable to keep working. I'm always freezing and my ears are always so cold in the winter. So I love this hat. This is also from Duluth. I never wear it up. It's always covering my ears. For overalls, I still have Duluth overalls, but these are more of like a heavy weight overall, which is great for in the mud. I actually wear these as snow pants if I'm gonna go tobogganing with my children. These keep me dry. These are the Fire Hose Duluth Flex, I think, if I remember. And they're really comfy. I can wear these all day, every day. They dry overnight when I get them all muddy and wet. So I'm really happy with these. These I've actually had for over 2 years now, and they're not really showing any signs of wear. For on the top, I have layers. I have fleeces. These I pick up at the thrift store. I like to try to buy them in the craziest colors I can find so that I'm all supplied in clown clothes. Then I like to have a vest to layer up too. This was a gift from my mom. She knows I'm always cold, so she's always bringing me warm, cozy things. So thanks, Mom. And then rain gear, a shell coat, as well as, you know, rain pants, these types of things. Anytime I'm in a thrift store, I do a sweep. I have probably like 4 pairs of rain pants, which is great because if you have company, you have guest rain gear for people. And then I have a couple of these shell jackets. I find these do get wet by having a couple, switch them out, I stay dry, and I stay comfortable working in all weather, because being a farmer means that you don't just get to work on the nice days, you have to work on the wet, cold, snowy days too. And then finally, on my feet, I still have bogs on. But these are winter insulated bog boots. And these I love because they keep my feet warm and dry for all the wet weather that, you know, we work through here on the farm. When I'm not outside in the fields, picking flowers, planting flowers, weeding weeds, and all those things you have to do on a farm, you will find me in my outbuilding at a folding table like this. We get these folding tables at Costco. It's nice to have lots of the tables so that we can arrange the room in a way that's going to be really efficient for us when we're working. Sometimes we use up to 4 of these tables to lay things out so that there's like a logical workflow. But right now we are at my table that doesn't move, and this is my folding station. This is where I use all those 18 by 18 U-line craft paper squares. And a lot of the, you know, office supplies type stuff that we use, we get from U-line just for convenience. It's easy to kind of find it all in the same place. We get our elastics there. They come in these 1 pound boxes. My preference is a 2.5 inch by 18 inch. It's number 31. And I also like a 2 inch by 18 inch, but I find it's a little short for doing on bouquets. The 2.5 inch gives me enough elastic that I can use these on my $20 bunches, but I can also do, you know, like a $60 bunch with this elastic too. To go along with our wraps, we have our stapler, and this right here, this is one of those things that you just are always trying to make the system better. The first stapler that we had was just a basic, you know, the type of stapler you have in an office, just very simple. You can find these everywhere. And this stapler cost me so much money because it was so difficult to use, and it was also really physically difficult to be stapling with it. So we ended up buying, you know, these kind of more industrial style staplers, the plier style. The space that I can stick this down on the paper is a lot longer than the other ones. It's easier to use. It's very easy to handle in the hand, and the movement of doing that, which I have to do so many times, it could potentially cause carpal tunnel if I wasn't careful. It's very physically easy on my wrist. So I love this stapler. It's from Uline, and we also get our staples there too, because one of the things that's a bit of a problem with this stapler is it's hard to find staples anywhere, like in town. Another really important piece of equipment that we have for our flowers is this. I call it a kerchunk machine, because it goes per chunk, but it's a stem cutter. And this we got used. We bought this off of another farmer who wasn't using it. So I don't have details about where this specific one came from, but I found a link down below to share with you guys for where you can find one of these too. And this has been really great to have. This has saved a lot of strain on our wrists by chopping stems, and it's also made it a lot faster. So this is a great piece of equipment. I was resistant to get it till this year, only because like this blade is very, very dangerous. And we had little kids who were always in the outbuilding a lot, and I just didn't feel I could trust my kids yet to not play with it. But this year, this was the year. And obviously I could have also, anytime I used it, then like put it away up high. I just didn't want to risk not doing that and have someone lose a finger. As I've already said, the buckets that we use for our display buckets are a stainless steel feed bucket. One of the things that's great about these, because I know lots of people tell me that this is different from the galvanized buckets, and that's what they find so exciting about it. This is a molded bucket. So there's no seam on this. There's no point inside the bucket, which is where the water is going, for there to, you know, be a risk of rust. We have a bunch of these that are kind of, you know, I used to have these even before at our old house for our home garden. And, you know, they don't get very damaged. They don't get rusty. They don't start to wear out. And, you know, we kick them around. We don't treat them super gently. They can get dented, you know, especially like, you know, on the edges. But even when they get dented, they don't leak, they don't rust. So they're expensive, but for me, they're worth the money. Our harvesting buckets are not expensive because our harvesting buckets are my mother's kitty litter buckets that she saved up for me. And I love these. The reason why I love these buckets is because they're reinforced on the top. These, you know, they were kitty litter buckets. They held something heavy. So it's a strong bucket on the top, and then it's a square shape. This square shape is the reason why this bucket is better than other buckets. The square it holds a lot more. And when I go and I slide these buckets in together, they cube up. There's no wasted space. Where these round ones, you know, when you slide them all in together, there's lots of, you know, movement around them. So I really like these, but I can't buy these. And my mom's actually switched to a different brand of kitty litter, and you know, they're buckets. You know, they get used up, they get cracked. They're not necessarily designed to be hanging out in the sun for years and years and years. So the next buckets I'm going to buy, as these slowly kick the bucket, is the professional, you know, florist buckets that they have at Johnny's. These are gorgeous and I want them so bad. They look like the perfect bucket. I know they're expensive, but the one lesson I've learned with spending money on these is sometimes it's worth spending a little bit of money to, you know, make life easier for you in the long run. So that's my dream bucket. Another piece of equipment that I absolutely love and I can't live without is these metal racks. We use these all over. I think at this point we might even have like 20 of these in total. They hold a lot, they're clean, they're easy to use, they're heavy duty, I don't have to worry about these. I can put these together, put things on them, and they're functional and safe for me. So we do a lot of these for storing, but we also, and this one is like just without casters. This one is a rolling rack. This one is on wheels, and so I can move it around. And we use the rolling racks for stuff that isn't going to be permanently in one space. This is a storage shelf. This is where we are holding a bunch of our, you know, equipment that we use for farming. But this one over here, this is temporary. This doesn't actually live here. We use these like this, right? We store a bunch of flowers on them and then we move them to wherever we need to work with them. And this year we did that specifically for moving buckets of flowers from the cooler into this workspace and vice versa, moving finished flowers back out to the cooler. Having this cart to roll things around on made it so that the work of moving buckets was way more efficient, way more ergonomical. They cost a little bit of money to get set up, but they are going to save my back and save me time for years and years to come. So, you know, this is one of those, I wouldn't have invested in this on my first year, but I'm very glad that I invested in it in one of my first years so that, you know, I have better systems going forward. And I loved the ergonomic efficiency of the rolling racks so much that I actually bought this little, I don't even know what they're for, but this little rolly cart for carrying even single buckets. When I have a 5-gallon bucket, it's just a little heavy for me to carry over and over and over again every single day. So by throwing it on here, you know, I can slide it around the room. This has done a lot of work for saving my back. Having this in here, thinking about it means that instead of doing, you know, a 50-pound lift, I'll throw it on there. Easy to lift it onto the cart. I'll roll it, take it off, you know, just save that little bit of my back. Carrying this, can do that all day, but you know, anything heavier. Help yourself out, right? That was what we mostly use in our workshop, but out here in our garage is where we keep some of our more, you know, dirty equipment. And a great place to start is with our, you know, seed starting stuff. We have thousands of pots on hand. which seems excessive, but somehow they all kind of start to get filled up and we always need more. A lot of this collection has been hand-me-downs, people, you know, needing a place to get rid of their plastic pots. It's been me going into our local farm store, buying whatever seedling trays they currently have available. We've also had pots. We've needed a few pots. We ordered them along with our wholesale orders to show up all together. It's, you know, it's kind of a mismatch of stuff. So rather than, you know, telling you, oh, I got this at this place where you can never find it, I'd rather talk to you about these, because these I am obsessed with. These are my favorite seedling trays, and they cost $1 million, so I don't have very many of them. But these are the Winstrip trays that are from Neversink. And this is specifically the 128 size tray. And I am of the opinion that hopefully into the future, as I stock up on these, this is all that I need. The 128 is the perfect size. You know, it's smaller than kind of the standard plugs that you'd buy like at a nursery. But this is the perfect size for a farmer because they only take 3 to 4 weeks to grow to this size, where some of those bigger plugs like this, like a 72 tray, these are going to take kind of 4 to 6 weeks to grow. And, you know, time is money. We only want to be growing these for so long. At this size, they're going to get out into the field and they're going to thrive really well. And then this is going to maximize all your seed starting space, because instead of using 72s and having, you know, under 300 on a shelf, I use the 128s. 4 trays of this is 500, and 4 trays of this is more than enough to plant a single bed. So these I really like and I highly recommend them. I'll include a few links though for ideas for places to, you know, be able to look at some of this other type equipment, you know, especially for all of my American friends. A lot of the flower farmers that you see online are doing smaller type operations. So for them, it makes a lot of sense to do everything as a seedling. Make sure that every little bit of space is filled up, maximized, you know, doing the soil block type work that you see people like Lisa Marie Ziegler do on her farm. Those are great systems. We do some things a little bit differently here, partially because we've come to flower farming out of vegetable farming. And so we've invested into some tools that made a lot of sense for us as vegetable farmers. And now that we have them, they're making a lot of sense for us still as flower farmers. And one of those things that, you know, lots of people don't have, and it's expensive, but I love, is my Jang Seeder. This is it's heavy. That's part of why it's so expensive. This is a precision seeder, and that means that it is going to be very careful and very precise when it drops the seeds into your farm. And you can adjust it for any type of seed, any type of spacing that you want to do, based on the different ways that you set up the seed rollers, which drops the seed, and then the sprockets that adjust how, you know, how quickly the seed drops based on the wheels spinning. This makes it so I can plant an entire bed. You know, this currently has sunflowers in it. I went out and I planted 2 50-foot beds of sunflowers, and, you know, it took me 10 minutes, and most of that effort was just finding this and taking it out to the farm in the first place. You know, using this tool, I could easily plant my entire farm in a single day. Lots of things for flowers I find grow really, really well from direct seed, and using the seeder. I feel there's lots of ways that, you know, I can grow things even better in the future with this seeder. So I'm really happy to have it. And, you know, it's a tool that I think others, you know, if they're doing a 1/4 acre or more, could find useful too. If you're nervous about the price on the Jang, you could always start with a tool like the Earthway. Way, way less money, same idea. It's just not as precise, and it's not, for me, as easy to use. But at the price on this, it's the type of thing that pays for itself in a single year of sunflowers. So, you know, this isn't something to be disregarded. Where we buy a lot of our tools and equipment on the farm is a Canadian company called Dewalt, and their website is dewaltag.com. I don't know that they sell to America, but all these tools you can find anywhere, and a lot of them are even available from Johnny Seeds too. So I'll have links for you guys. Another investment I've been super happy with is landscape fabric. This stuff is amazing. It holds up really good. The landscape fabric that we bought in our first year still looks perfect. I can't tell the difference between the 4-year-old landscape fabric and the 1-year-old landscape fabric. So it holds up really nicely. And it does an incredible job at keeping the weeds down. We're fighting like a rhizome grass, and it's nasty and it's hard to keep it out of the farm. But with landscape fabric, it's actually kept a lot of it at bay. So I'm always shocked how much this can help us out. Landscape fabric is the type of product where you can buy something called landscape fabric and it's the worst thing you've ever bought, or you can buy something called landscape fabric and it'll like save your life. So be cautious about where you get this. My number one advice when people ask me about it is don't ever buy it at a hardware store, but if you're looking for it in town, you could maybe try an irrigation type store, somewhere that's like more industrial. They could have supplies like this, but it needs to be UV, you know, it needs to be like woven, it needs to be thick, it needs to be heavy duty, or else you're basically just, you know, you might as well just get a chipper shredder and throw plastic bags into it. It's just, and throw garbage all over your garden. The bad ones are very bad. So I'll try to get some links down below. Sunbelt is a brand that makes a good thing. DeWitt is a brand that we've bought here. But often when I buy it, the brand isn't actually, you know, labeled. It's just I'm buying it from a company that I know I can trust to be selling me the right thing. Other big tools that I love and I think have been great investments for me, despite how expensive they are, and would potentially be great investments for other farmers too, is my BCS. You know, the walking tractor has been incredible. I'm always amazed at what it can do. You know, I'd been exposed to rototillers, you know, something to turn up your garden a little bit, and they've always been difficult. Whereas the BCS, it's, you know, we take it to do jobs that I think it won't be able to do, and it does it without a problem. We mostly use it as a tiller. Between the landscape fabric and the BCS, it's the only reason we've been able to grow things here, because of the rhizomatous grass that we have. It's done a great job. And I know as the farm changes and evolves, there's different implements that we can get for it as we change the way we farm. If we don't want to be tilling all the time, there are, you know, power harrows that we could use to, you know, just be working the top bit of the soil. There's lots of other tools that we can get for it so that it will keep being valuable for us throughout the years. Greenhouses or high tunnels, those are amazing. We currently have 4 here on the farm, and they always pay for themselves every single year. Even as the cost of metal has gone up over the last few years, as their prices have, like, you know, really increased, they still make a lot of sense on the farm. We were using them for veggies. What they could do for us with veggies was amazing. But even with the flowers, what they can do with us for flowers is amazing too. There's lots of crops that we wouldn't be able to be successful growing if it wasn't for the fact that we're growing them under shelter. You know, and even things that are easy to grow and, you know, just simple, like, why would you ever need it? Like this year we grew some yarrow inside of a greenhouse just to try to get some a little bit earlier. Yarrow normally for me, you know, I can get really nice stem length on it, but the yarrow in that greenhouse, you know, it was like up to my shoulders. It was incredible how tall it got. And so without the wind, with, you know, some of that light being filtered, with growing flowers, you can get these really, really long stems, really straight stems, really high quality cuts that you can't necessarily get out in the field. So, you know, consider them. Our original two we got from Farmer's Friend. We didn't get it directly from them. We got them used, but those specific high tunnels are, you know, we've had them for 5 years. I think they were being used for 5 years before we got it. So they're going on their 10th year, and, you know, like, no problems. You do need to replace plastic on any of them. The plastic eventually gets, like, you know, too opaque and it stops functioning. But yeah, been really happy with that company. Another piece of equipment that's been transformative for her farm this year, and it's the type of thing that I haven't heard anyone ever talk about this, so I want to just hit on it briefly, is we invested into air conditioners. Originally, we bought an air conditioner for our walk-in cooler. You need to have an air conditioner to hook up to the CoolBot in order to be the refrigeration unit for the walk-in cooler, and that was incredible. But as soon as we did that, we started to think, hey, we don't necessarily need fridge temperatures, but it would be nice if it wasn't 40. It'd be nice if it wasn't 100 degrees. And so then we started thinking about, hey, what are ways that air conditioners can, you know, really help us here on the farm? We bought an air conditioner for our roadside stand. By doing that, you know, it wasn't fridge cold, but it was cold enough that we were able to keep the flowers healthy and happy up there, you know, really extending the vase life for our customers when they pick them up. This specific air conditioner was in our, you know, main room of the outbuilding, and it made it so I could easily work with flowers in that space without having to worry about how hot it was. I could take the flowers out of the cooler where, you know, they're in at around 5 degrees Celsius, and bring them into the room, which, you know, I think we kept it at about 20 Celsius. It's a very large space, and it's hot here, so there's only so much this air conditioner could do. But by doing that, it, you know, made a big difference for how quickly they opened. You know, it kept them healthier and happier than they would have if they had come out of that fridge straight into 35 degrees, which, you know, is hot for people and hot for flowers. So, you know, it's a different way of thinking about tools on the farm, but thinking about tools in different ways on the farm sometimes lead to, you know, the best possible answers. Over the years, we've bought a lot of different, you know, smaller hand tools for on the farm. And I don't have the time to go through and give, you know, a thorough review on all of them. But there are a few that I feel are the ones that we couldn't live without that I'd like to touch on. We have a landscape rake that I think is 30 inches wide. It's so wide that it's difficult for me to use it. I find it's just like a little bit too heavy, and it drags a little bit too much. But Ian uses that all the time. He uses it to clean up beds. He uses it to flatten beds. You know, it picks up a lot of material. It's the size of our beds. And it's great. It's a great tool. We use that more on the farm than pretty much any other handled tool. The second handled tool that I love, this is the one while Ian's using the rake, is a wire weeder. I've tried lots of different types of hose. I like hose. I like, you know, they all serve their own purpose. But my number one favorite is just a simple wire weeder. And these, you can buy them and they're incredible. And I really like the Never Sink system that they have where the heads are interchangeable. And I know that Johnny's has recently released a system that's the same, where you can pop different wire heads onto the same handle while you're out in the field, which makes it really convenient. But you can even just like take a stick and a piece of wire and like tape the wire to the stick, and it does the same purpose. This is not going to take out big overgrown weeds. A wire weeder, the function of it is once a week, before weeds grow, when they're just like those teeny tiny babies, you run it over the dirt, you cultivate the dirt, you keep the dirt unable to allow weeds to keep growing, and then it's not physical. You can do it really quickly, you can do it really fast, and it does a really good job. So I love wire weeders. I highly recommend everyone to try one. It's my first recommendation for the type of hoe to try out. A new tool that we got this year that I've had lots of conversations about, so I think it's worth touching on, is we got an electric hedge trimmer. And this is for cutting down plants. We use it on the farm anytime we're doing some cleanup. There's lots of crops now that we're doing perennials that, you know, they kind of bloom and then we need to cut them down for the summer, or, you know, to do fall cleanup, or even crops that are finished and you need them cleaned up in place. You know, the hedge trimmer has been incredible. Having it be electric means it's really easy to move around the farm with it. We're not limited to cords and all of that. And it's held up pretty good. I prefer a hedge trimmer over, what are they, like the whip, the wire trimmers, I don't know. I don't know the name for them, but I don't like that as much because I find it flicks the little plastic string trimmer. That's it. It flicks broken pieces of the plastic string, and it's just a little bit more violent. The hedge trimmer is like a more controlled, smooth cut, and so because of that, we've really liked it here on the farm, and it saved us a ton of time, and it saved Ian's back a lot of pain. And then these are my small hand tools that I use all the time. And so these I'm gonna go over quickly. The first one I'm gonna start with is a bulb planter. And the reason why I'm gonna start with this is because I didn't know what this was. This is one of the best things for me about doing YouTube. I did a video where I was struggling digging all these holes, and someone who watches my videos was like, Serena, what are you doing? You need to get a bulb planter. And so I went and I got one, and I was like, genius, you just saved me 40 hours a year by getting this tool. I don't use this to plant bulbs. What I use this for is I use this for planting into the landscape fabric. Anytime I have a larger seedling, it's pretty much exactly this size, and the bulb planter is the perfect size for the pre-burned holes in the landscape fabric. So this allows me to go in, you know, you cram it into the dirt, it gets filled up with dirt, you pull it out, you press the button, the dirt falls out. This allows me to quickly and easily make space inside the holes in landscape fabric to plant things like my tomatoes or, you know, dahlias, things like that, stuff that you grow out before you put out. So I hadn't thought of this. So maybe this helps some of you guys too. For most of my seedling planting, this is the tool that I'm using. And most of them on the farm that you see me using don't look like this because these are, you know, they're not great metal, and so the tip always breaks off. So you'll see me having tons that look more like this. That's because they've broken off, and then Ian's just like ground a new tip onto it for me. They don't, and you know, truthfully, they don't need to be this long. The skinniness of the shovel and the depth of the shovel makes it so it's really easy for me to do plugs with it. It's the perfect size for a 72, which is like a bigger plug, but it also is the perfect size for, you know, any of the smaller size plugs as well. So, you know, goes in the dirt, it has a long enough blade that it gives me good leverage to make an opening, you know, stab it in, go like that, makes an opening, stick my plug in. The handle, I really like the shape of this handle. I find them really easy to use. Yeah, and so I love this. This is how I transplant on the farm by hand. And then, because I suck at weeding, the goal is to use that wire weeder all the time, but that isn't what happens. They get overgrown, and then I need to go and do intensive weeding. So my favorite tool for that is these Japanese hand hoes. I love these. I need like a lefty one because I'm holding up two specifically because I recommend having two, because when I go out and I weed with these, I'm not just like, oh, like just a little bit, it's usually a mess. I need to do lots of weeding. So I actually take 2 and I go and I'm like, with both hands. I'm like Serena hoe hands. I go and I attack all the weeds. I crawl around, just scraping as I go. The recommendation of 2 is partially, you know, my endorsement that they're really easy to use. They're so easy to use that you can use it in your non-dominant hand at the exact same time that you're using it in your dominant hand. The shape of it and like the pointiness and the length and everything, like I love the feel of these while working. Like it's just, I'm like, where has this tool been my whole life? The first time I used it. I know it's winter now, but spring is coming soon. And so, you know, another category of, you know, equipment that I have on the farm is indoor growing supplies. My lights and my racks. I don't want this video to last forever, so I'm not going to go over those. But I did make a video a couple of years ago, and I still stand behind everything that I said in it, speaking specifically about, you know, setting up my light system. So I will add that as a tab for you guys to be able to check out. And this spring I'll make a new version of it. I'm not going to get into it today. Over the course of the season, this couch has slowly devolved into being my seed corner because I'd end up sitting on the couch, taking a rest before I'd get my seeds to go out and plant all summer. So I brought you guys over here to talk about, you know, where I get my seeds and where I get my, you know, wholesale plants and things like that. But before I tell you that, I want to tell you guys about these carts. This is an IKEA, you know, craft cart. And this, in my opinion, is the best way to store seeds. I love that it's like on a little like wheel. In the spring when I'm doing lots of seedlings, I pull my little cart up beside my table. And I find that they're really easy to tuck away into a corner. It's very easy to organize everything. So this is how I like to store my seeds. I see lots of people recommending those like photo cases. But for me, like a lot of the seeds that I buy are in these like really large packs, or I have more than would nicely fit into those photo cases. Instead of having like an entire room of plastic cases, I like the convenience of my little carts. One of my favorite companies to buy seeds from is Johnny Seeds. There's lots and lots of the Johnny's packages in my pile here. Johnny Seeds is great for veggies and for flowers. I really like the flower selection that they have. And my opinion on the Johnny Seeds flower selection is they don't have everything, but if they don't have it, do I need to bother growing it? They have everything that I need. It's very rarely that they don't, you know, have what I'm looking for. And I really do try to limit myself. There's a million things I could grow, but it's better to be focused on growing 100 things correctly than growing one of everything. The other place that I spend a lot of money at is Sunflower Selections. I buy all of my sunflowers from there. They are the breeders, you know, creators of the ProCut sunflowers. And so by buying from them, you know, because I'm buying thousands and thousands of them every year, I save money. They have the best prices out of everyone. And they don't only have massive wholesale size packs. You know, this is a 1,000 size pack, but I think they sell in, I think their smallest size is 100 seed packs. So, you know, it's easy for like home gardeners who like sunflowers to buy stuff with them too. So Sunflower Selections. And then Canadian companies that I shop with William Dam Seeds. They are out in Ontario. And they have a pretty good selection. They have some flowers. They're mostly for veggies, but they can be difficult to get your order from. They're really busy. So if I'm going to order from them, especially as a farm, I try to make sure I'm ordering from them 6 months before I need it, because they can they can get backed up. And then the other Canadian company that I really like is West Coast Seeds. They're based out of my province, British Columbia. So they're nice and local to me. And they have a fun selection of like flowers and veggies. And they do a lot of the more open pollinated stuff. So, you know, I really like them. This year I'm also going to be doing some seed ordering from Ball. We are ordering some seedlings from them as well too. They're wholesale only, so, you know, not super helpful for home gardeners. But I'm really excited to be, you know, trying out a new resource that looks like it's going to have some of the things that I want from Johnny Seeds that I can't get, so I'm excited. These are seeds, but we also get in plants. The place that we get our perennials, dahlias, tulips, daffodils, that kind of stuff is Van Noort. They are down in the Lower Mainland too, so they're close to us. They are Canada only, wholesale only, but their wholesale is pretty reasonable. They have a $500 minimum, so that's pretty easy. That's pretty easy to spend when you're doing things on a farm scale, and we've been really happy with them ordering over the years. And then for the super special stuff, yet again, it's still wholesale. And they have minimums, but they've been really great to work with. And the minimums have been really reasonable for, you know, these small farm sizes, is unicorn blooms. And that is where we got our ranunculus and our anemones for this winter, and where we got our ranunculus that we grew out this past year. We also got our peonies. They bring in lots of stuff too. They have like specialty Icelandic poppies. They have specialty delphinium seeds. You know, there's lots of things that I haven't yet explored with them, but they're a great Canadian only resource too if you're, you know, looking for wholesale stuff. I had a whole list of books that I wanted to share with you guys, as well as details about the equipment that we use to film our videos, but I recognize that this video needs to end sometime, and so I'm gonna leave it here. As I went to create this video for you all, what I was focusing on was the things that I've been asked many times for links and for details for. So, you know, I've prioritized what I've shared previously, but I know that there's still so much more that I haven't even thought to touch on. As I said in the beginning of the video, I'm more than happy to answer your questions about my sources. I know how hard it is to find this information. I know how hard it can be to know where to start, and so I'm more than happy to make that just a little bit easier than it had to be for me. Make sure check out the comments, and I'd also like to give another thank you to our sponsor, Established Titles. I think it makes a great gift idea, and the details for it are down in the description, as well as all the links for finding everything that I've talked about in this video.